Happy Thursday. Welcome to Learning Unwrapped, the talk show about your most important life skill, brought to you by International Broadcast Media TV. And I'm very excited for the show we have tonight, so I don't want to waste another second. Let's get going. I want to bring in my co-host, who is a woman who works at IDE with me. She is our Director of Educational Equity, but she is also involved in designing several STEM and STEAM schools. Please welcome Shanae Buford.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be back, Nancy.
It's good to see you, Shanae. All right, so tell me about something you learned this week.
Oh, so much. I'll have to go with today. I learned that, as corny as this is going to sound, like teamwork really makes the dream work. So the team that I was working with and we're designing this project, so shouts out to Holly, Erica, Melissa, that, you know, it really takes a village. And so it's great to be able to rely on great teammates to really come in the clutch. And so that's something that I've learned this week.
And we are putting together an online toolkit on culturally responsive teaching in a remote and hybrid learning environment for a state that shall be remain nameless. But here we are. And well, as you know, we've got some really cool guests with us today.
But what did you learn this week, Nancy?
Oh, I can't tell you what I learned yet.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you, remind me when I bring up what's in my mug.
Oh, okay. Noted.
So the first guest you know very well.
Yes.
We met Shelley a bunch of years ago when she was a principal who's part of a program to start a STEM school, but not just any STEM magnet school, a STEM magnet school that uses our model of the Learner Active Technology Infused Classroom to engage kids through problem-based learning and through engagement, empowerment, building efficacy with the idea that it's STEM all day, every day. Yeah. And she has an amazing faculty of teachers. So shout out to Bayonet Point Middle School.
Shout outs to the Point.
Pasco County, Florida. So after the initial meetings, and then I know you ran summer training, then I went to visit the school, and it was a brand new school too, new school building. And I remember when I walked up to that school and I saw the entrance, I was like, what an awesome statement to put above your school. And then as I walked in, I saw that our design process is right up there on the walls for all the students to see as they're walking around. And then, of course, Shelley is very involved, very hands-on, always engaging her faculty, including engaging them in design process and thinking through things. So in addition to being the principal of Bayonet Point STEM Magnet School in Pasco County, Florida, she has an adorable 18-month-old who she just told us actually is about 3 feet tall at 18 months and is starting to take apart everything. And she's also an avid baseball fan. I think at some point those two are going to come together. Please welcome Shelley Carino.
Yay, Shelley.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me.
It is great to have you here. And I see you have a fan, Jillian White, who is done some work with you and excited to see you.
Shout out to Jillian.
Both of us were there today, actually.
So my next guest, because I want to bring in all three guests and then we're going to be talking. My next guest, I was looking for a guest for the show, and I was just on the internet and I stumbled upon this fascinating woman, and I reached out to her. She is a paleobotanist, and that was the first time I'd actually learned that word, and an ecologist. She is a lecturer and a PhD candidate at Rhodes University. She is doing her research at the Albany Museum in Grahamstown, South Africa, on plant fossils of the Permian period. I'll give you a second to decide when you think that is. Okay, that's over 251 million years ago. Her work involves trying to solve a 200-year-old scientific problem to determine the taxonomy of ancient fossil plants. Coming to us from South Africa, where it is midnight, please welcome Abiwe Matiwani.
Hi. How are you? I'm good, thanks, and you?
Good. And thank you so much for coming, for staying awake for the show.
It's a pleasure. Anything for you.
I want you to know I wore a rock for you.
Yes. Oh, wow.
I know you love rock, so I wore a rock.
Yes, I do.
So Aviwe is in a STEM field, and as you know, she had said, and we'll talk about more, that it's one, being a paleobotanist, there aren't a lot of women in the field, and there really aren't a lot of Black women in the field. And so we're excited that you chose that STEM field, and I'm going to ask you more on that soon too. But I want to bring in our last guest, last but not least. Now, you probably know Carrie Gentner, who is our director behind the scenes. She's feeling a little unwell today, so Boyd Adelson is taking over as director for the day, but she's still back there. And she has a cousin who is also in a very interesting field. She is an expert in socially assistive agents, such as robots, for both older adults and children with social and emotional challenges. She works right now primarily with in helping students with autism communicating through robots. She is the executive director of PeerBots, which is a nonprofit company with offering software. She's a research affiliate at the Atlas Institute of the University of Colorado in Boulder. She is the head of technology and research for Fine Art Miracles, the head of the product user experience at Movia Robotics. It's pretty much a miracle, Aubrey, that you had time to come on the show. She started out as a fine art student and a sculptor at Carnegie Mellon University and left as a robotics researcher, made the shift to STEM midway. Please welcome Aubrey Schick and Misty.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Happy to be here.
So this is our learning show, and I told Nancy what I learned this week. So I'm going to start with my old friend Shelly, who I've known for 5 years now. Shelly, we've been on this journey.
5, 6 years. I don't know. I'm losing count.
I know. So what is
you're
something
supposed
you
to say
learned?
wonderful years.
Yes, it's been beautiful.
Yeah, it has been.
So what have you learned this week being principal of a STEM middle school in the midst of all that's happening?
This week we actually had a training on how to look at some data that our kids are taking that's measuring their academic progress. But the really cool thing, that's the math geek in me, they had a quadrant graph that plotted data with students' names on it. I know, very cool. And then in that graph, you're able to change proficiency levels, and it assists you with it, moves the line and shifts the kids so that then you know how to create your small groups and design intentional planning based on proficiency versus adequate growth. So if you're looking at proficiency versus growth, it helps you determine what groups you want to create. So definitely something we're going to have our teachers dapple in as we train them.
You're going to be geeking out on that.
Yeah.
Well, math rules the world. So any quadrant, I'm here for it. So next, I want to know so much about this paleobotany. Is that, am I right, Nancy?
Paleobotanist, Aviwe.
I'm excited to know all this stuff. But first of all, talk to us about what is something that you learned this week.
So I learned a lot this week, but one of the key things that I learned was saying no, because like I said, I'm a people's pleaser, and I love doing things for people, but it always ends up affecting me and impacting me. So saying no is actually a full sentence. That's what I learned, without having to explain yourself and without having to give certain reasons to people. So I've been trying and practicing it very hard. It's been hard, but I'm trying.
I love that. That's so
you're
powerful.
learning to say no.
Sorry?
You're learning to say no.
Yes, I'm learning to say no, because the thing is, I always overcommit myself, and then I always feel like a failure at the end when I don't, achieve certain things that I have set out for myself.
Well, I'm
Awesome.
thrilled that you didn't say no to the invitation to the show.
Definitely
sure.
not.
All right, and to Aubrey. Talk to us, Aubrey. You and
Yes.
Misty. What
Or
was
Misty.
learned this week?
So what I learned this week, and Misty was not exactly the one involved. So I've been deploying robots with children for about 10 years, and we always kind of take for granted that the family, the child understands that they're going to have an enjoyable, fun experience with the robot, that the robot's going to be a friend, right? And it's that social, fun relationship that is the foundation for how you build and add skills on top of that. And I had, for the first time in all of those years, a situation where a parent didn't necessarily expect the child to be having fun, and so they were basically kind of keeping them working a little too long, and so we had to kind of step in and say, like, no, this is all about having fun and building a positive relationship and scaffolding from there. And I never realized quite how overtly you might have to tell a parent that it's a fun experience.
Right.
Never needed to do that before. Some people look at almost like exercise equipment, which I've never seen, but we're solved.
I do think you have some exercise equipment in your room there.
hiding behind a robot.
Well, you are all in such exciting fields, and I want to share to kind of start the conversation a graphic that looks at how we look at STEM, because what we find is in schools where we are preparing students for STEM careers, there is a sense that the most important thing, or I shouldn't say that, where we tend to put an emphasis is on the stuff of STEM.
Right.
And if my director would put up that graphic, there we go.
Right.
So if you look at the top, it's like we focus on those tangible materials and the stuff of STEM, and that's public image. The parents are looking and ooh, look at what's going on. And the next level is you really need to use that stuff to solve real world problems, not just to learn how to make the robot move or learn how to build the robot, but for a purpose. And how do we start getting kids into solving real world problems? But the most important thing is the whole reason that STEM became an emphasis in schools was because we weren't having enough people going into the field of science, technology, engineering, and math, and particularly girls not going into the fields. So I consider this a moral imperative that what we need to do in schools is build in students the mindset of being a scientist, technologist, engineer, and mathematician. How do these STEM career people think so that we can prepare students to choose a STEM career if they so decide to do so? All right, so with that, I'm going to ask you, I think I'm going to start, Aviwe, I'm going to start with you. Like in your field, how does your mind work when you're doing your work, looking at fossils and trying to solve that 200-year-old problem?
I call myself the plant detective because it's a lot of detective work trying to find answers to questions from a million years ago. I mean, when you are actually taking a fossil and you find a fossil, you're the very first person to see that plant fossil over a million years. So it's quite an intriguing thing because I love taxonomy. So that's the learning about naming plants, and it's always been something that I love. And the whole puzzle and trying to figure things out is what actually intrigued me about STEM, not necessarily just the fossil. The fossil is a great find and it gets the kids very excited,
Right.
But it's actually the more detective work that's in the lab that people don't actually know about that makes it worth it. And that's what you see at the end when we have our publications out. and also when we do our science communication, because that's what we do, and it's very important to actually do that. So yeah, it's more detective work for me than anything else.
And I bet a lot of people in STEM careers would agree with you. I was a computer scientist in a past life and a programmer. I program I program in a lot of languages, but when I got to C language, I realized I could now rule the world. So, and really being a technologist, it's all about detective work. So I love that you are a plant detective. And I'm going to kick it over to you, Aubrey, and you can tell us, how is it that you, working in your field in STEM career, think, and how do you relate it to being a detective?
Well, I would say, for me, I'm always really looking at empathizing with the people who are using the robots, and I think that's a big part of what draws more women into social robotics and socially assisted robotics. So, socially assisted robots are robots that help through coaching or teaching, as opposed to physically lifting things or doing things for you. I find myself
so important, because I think when people think of robotics, they think of it as carrying something or driving somewhere, not a communication tool.
Yes. And so the robots I work with in particular are focused on being either good peers or good teachers. And so, as we know, learning from peers really changes the dynamic and how much judgment a child perceives and how willing they are to get out of their comfort zone. And what we find with the robots is that the kids perceive no judgment, and so they're willing to try and engage longer, particularly kids with social and emotional challenges who might be overwhelmed by complex facial features, body posture, vocal intonation, the relationship with an authority. With the robot, they just have a free rein to engage. And for my detective work is observing that and designing for it.
I love that. I love that.
Does that put you a little bit into the engineer category?
Yes, a bit. So I'd say probably one of my special skills is what I call interaction architecture, which is really designing the translation between what a human educator might do to something that a robot would do, and working with educators to kind of create that software translation.
That's cool. So without even thinking about this group consists of a scientist, it would be Aviwe, a technologist, I'll take that one, an engineer, Aubrey, and Shanae, our resident mathematician.
And Shirley, she got a math background too.
No. I'm bringing in Shelley to say, so now you're hearing about all these STEM careers. Shelley, you are molding and shaping young minds toward this. Tell us about your school and what you do.
Yeah.
So at Bayonet Point, for me, I don't feel like I'm just shaping the young minds of my kids. In my eyes, I have two groups of kids. I have little kids and I have big kids. And the big kids are the teachers. And so it starts with them, because they are what trickles down into the classroom for my middle schoolers. So by providing my teachers with the tools that they need to be successful with creating those engaging environments, understanding STEM, most people understand STEM to be this typical science, technology, engineering, and math. So, and working with Nancy and Shanae and Carrie and all of IDE, we've been able to transform that mindset of our staff, one, to a growth mindset, and two, which is super important in the STEM field, is that ability to fail forward. And that's a really tough thing for adults. Kids are a little bit more adaptable to change, but even for the kids. So if the adults can't model that failure is okay, as long as you pick yourself up and you learn from those mistakes, and that's part of the design process that we implement at Bayonet Point is, sometimes you have to go back and, re-explore, redesign, all those different things. So in the classrooms, we try to get the teachers to model that for the kids and then engage those kids in those growth mindsets. And that's really where it starts. There's so much more to STEM than just the stuff, which is what Nancy mentioned at the beginning.
For sure. And I know that in working with you guys like that, the ELA and the social studies often feel kind of disconnected. But to being the detective point earlier, that takes evidence and research and reading and knowing sources and being able to pull all those pieces out in order to be able to solve, those problems. So that, that connection to why the ELA reading is important, the things we need to know about history that's going to help us solve the problems for science, like they're all interconnected. And so I think that connection of, yes, you are in ELA, but that is still connected to us being a STEM school. I think that was important for, that messaging piece as well.
And that you can use the design process to write a poem or an argumentative essay. You can use the design process to look at a period of history and decide, what could we do differently in our future? So I think design process is just so pervasive, and we have IDE has a design process, and I know backstage we have an image of that is what you saw on Kelly's walls. But the idea that we want students to formulate a problem and then explore it and then ideate and then sift through to decide which one they want to try to prototype and then simulate it. And then eventually when they come up with their idea, they have to advocate to a real audience. And of course these layers go back and forth on one another, but the idea of design process, I'm saddened by the fact that design process is used primarily in STEM programs, or you'll see it in a science class, but you don't see it all over. You don't see it in an art class. You don't see it. And I should say, to clarify for the audience, I want to make sure that I am not leaving out STEAM programs or STREAM programs or any of the others. I feel like at the core of all of them is the idea of building in students the mindsets of being a scientist, technologist, engineer, mathematician, or careers that they may not typically think of that they are capable of following in some cases, but that we need the language arts. We need the A for art in design in order to be working in this. That's why I feel like an integrated program like what you're doing, Shelley, is so much more powerful. And I should too give, I have you on the show, but I need to give a shout out to your partner school, Centennial, Rick Saylor, who is the
Dr. Rick Saylor.
Because we started working in these two middle schools pretty much at the same time. Now, while we were talking, Boyd, if you can bring up, there was a question from Linda Glashinsky for Aviwe.
Aviwe got a question on deck.
Was Aviwe schooled in South Africa? How was that experience being a Black woman in a man's field and in a country where apartheid existed?
That is a very interesting question. Yes, I was schooled in South Africa, and it's been difficult, let me say, being a Black female, particularly in a white male-dominated field. We have a long way to go, but there is progress that is happening. But I mean, just the fact that, if you look at the paleobotanists in my side, there are only 3 paleobotanists. Okay, I'll say I'm the third one, but it's my supervisor and her supervisor who are doing macro plant fossils in the Permian. And you can't tell me that in the whole entire continent of Africa that you only have 3 people who are doing this and who are South African, and me being the first Black paleobotanist in the country is just, quite shocking when we've had democracy for over 20 years. So it's quite a challenging thing, but it's always a pleasure, to have kids that see you, who can relate to you and know that they can actually pursue this career in paleobotany or any paleoscience field in that fact. And we always have a problem with with discrimination and racism all over. But I think most of the time it's not addressed fully. It is something that is just swept under the carpet. And so you have to maneuver your way through it. But I mean, we have a generation and a group of people who are uprising and coming into this field as young academics who are from all different shades and colors, who are very passionate about STEM and STEM education and science communication, and they want to make sure that there is representation and in the field, and that we are heard, just because we are taken into the field and we are groomed as paleobotanists, but also our ideas, our knowledge, our contribution is key as well. So I think different dynamics, particularly when it comes to South Africa, we need to explore certain, ideas about how do we bring this together as, as the new generation, and how do we make sure that we find a place for ourselves and a spot in the world to say, hey, look at South Africa, because at the end of the day, South Africa has the best fossils in the world. That's what I think.
I would assume so. I would assume so, for real.
Travel agents, get ready. We're coming to find the fossils. And I would love to find out from each of you, and I'm going to start with you, Aubrey. I love that you entered Carnegie Mellon in fine arts as a sculptor and you left as a researcher in your field. What made you go into a STEM field, in this one in particular? What's your story?
Yeah, that's great. Well, so I've always been really passionate about how people's relationships with physical forms affect them emotionally and cognitively. And so I went, from fine art, I went into industrial design. And what I found being at Carnegie Mellon was that robotics was this unique space where all of my passions combined, right? So I could take my passion, my interest for creating objects and experiences that interact with your personal space and create meaning. And then also tie that with my passion for observing how people engage and designing meaningful, educational, nurturing relationships. So that's how I kind of went into robotics, and it was just a perfect thing for me. And in terms of STEM, a lot of the time it's much easier to find a kid who really likes to draw, or who kind of identifies as an artist, even if they just like storytelling or narrative or things like that, and helping them see that actually there are people who have started out with that kind of mindset, who have wound up in STEM, who've wound up in engineering. It's easier for them to relate to and feel it as achievable.
Yeah, that's very cool. Although I have to say, Aubrey, I don't know how many people are really looking at you, because Misty over there has these great eyes. She's very compelling.
For sure.
Aviwe, I actually found you because I read your tweet about how you got into a STEM field, and I was totally taken by it. So tell us your story.
So I've had a lot of people who had a contribution in my, being in STEM. Firstly, the most important person is my grandfather. So my grandfather used to take me to the forest when I was young, and he would teach me all the medicinal plants in our, local area, or when we went into the field to get the cattle or the sheep and stuff. So he played a really vital role in grooming me, and also, planting that first seed and allowing me to explore and know all of this. The thing is, growing up in South Africa, I didn't even know that there was a field called botany, more or less even paleobotany, And it just so happened that there were so many things that I don't want to talk too much, but all I can say, what I can say is, what I can say is, I found a wonderful supervisor called Dr. Rose Previck, who is a paleobotanist. So for my postgrad, mostly I was doing forest biodiversity, and I only picked up paleobotany in my PhD. So I really knew what paleobotany was until I actually picked it up in my PhD. So it's a learning experience. It's been wonderful because I do have the support, and there's so much and many great things that are about to come. So watch this space.
So Aviwe, I heard you give a shout out there, but your audio went out a little bit. Say the name again of Rose.
Oh, it's Dr. Rose Previck.
Okay, Rose Privick, shout out to you. Thank you very much. Now, Shelley, here you are again with this big role of helping students realize that people like Aubrey and Aviwe and their careers exist along with many others. How did you decide to become a principal?
It was naturally the next step after an assistant principal. But as an assistant principal, you're limited in the things that you can do as far as change. So as a principal, you have more opportunities to influence and make connections with people. And as a first year principal, I was very blessed and not blessed with having a school that needed to be remodeled. And so with that came a new building and new opportunities. So I was afforded the opportunity to be a STEM school and then also infuse our learner active classroom. And for me, it was what I was looking for my students and my staff. We didn't see a whole lot of engagement and motivation, and the STEM environment provides the opportunities for those kids to really connect to those different learning modalities with the visual, the auditory, the kinesthetic, with the hands-on. But it also creates opportunities for the teachers to challenge their kids and give them those opportunities to grapple, and I used the word fail forward earlier, to learn those life skills, because we only get better when we try things. We're not going to be perfect all the time, and teaching our kids and our teachers that it's okay to make mistakes, right. And that trial and error through having those STEM mindsets is so critical, and understanding that STEM is so much more than just the stereotype of STEM or science, technology, engineering, and math. So really giving our kids those life skills of being collaborative team players, learning how to work with each other, especially middle schools, middle school kiddos. They don't always get along. Using that accountable talk with, I agree with Shanae, but I would also like to add. So really teaching those kids those life skills, and then also how to be problem solvers and how to think critically, and that there is not always one way to solve a problem, which is a lot of times what we've been taught. So just providing and having the opportunity to put them in those environments and giving them the opportunity to thrive. It's just amazing how you see teachers transform, and then how you see your kids feed off of that. And that's really what is, just kind of fuels the fire as a principal, that you see those things happening and those wheels turning at your school.
I love that. And because actually Jillian and I were there at Bayonet today working with your teachers, and virtually. Yeah. I mean, I'll be there in person next week.
I know. We were disappointed you weren't there today.
I'll be there in person next week. But because my background is math, so I taught middle school math. I was taking Calculus 2 as a freshman at the Florida State University. Respected the on it. Whoop, whoop. But it was interesting, even in my upper Calc 2 classes, and I was in like physics and chem and all of that it was rare to see someone who looked like me in those classrooms. And then also to Aubrey's point earlier, because I was in math, those higher math, but I was in an education field. And people like, well, why don't you go be a mathematician or do this or that? Like, why do you want to go and teach? But I had the passion for the math, but also to instruct young people. And so I wanted to bring those things together. But people are like, oh, you shouldn't go connecting, to education. You could be doing this, and this other thing. So just bridging those two passions of I love math, still do, but to I love working with children and being in education, like really kind of bridging, those pieces together.
Yeah, it's fabulous that we have all taken these different paths to get to where we are. I know for me, it started when I was 12 years old and wanted to build a clubhouse, and I went into the woods and started just nailing boards into trees, and my mother thought that wasn't a good idea. So she said, why don't you ask your father when he comes home? And then he said, well, we're going to have blueprints. And I was 12. I'm like, what's a blueprint? Oh, well. And so now he taught me how to make blueprints. And we made a blueprint for a 2-story clubhouse. So I had to learn ratio and proportion. And then we built this beautiful clubhouse. And then I said, well, we're going to need a ladder to the second floor. He's like, ladder? We're going to build a staircase. I was like, staircase? How do you build a staircase? And he taught me how to use a protractor. Now, this from the man who also helped me do a project in social studies where we were going to carve out a bust of Andrew Jackson. And we filled a bucket with plaster of Paris. We dumped it out. And now you got this blob of plaster of Paris. And I looked at it and I said, well, Dad, how do we carve a bust of Andrew Jackson? And his response was, we just start carving away everything that doesn't look like Andrew Jackson. So,
he's not wrong.
Clearly, I am a product of Dad. I ended up getting very much into problem-based learning. And that's going to segue me to, it's hard to believe we're already more than halfway through, but it's going to segue me to an intro. I have a little something special before we get into what's in your mug.
Okay.
I have a very special virtual guest who is a young man who is in 7th grade and, of course, working from home now remotely. He's realizing that he kind of likes working from home remotely, but he's a little bit bored with the way school is going, listening to teachers on Zoom calls, etc. And he loves Minecraft. He has his own YouTube channel where he makes amazing videos. I've watched them all. And he and I are actually collaborating to design a curriculum for students that is based on gaming and Minecraft and Java, etc. So he is going to solve problems around the world using these tools. And we're going to show how you can build all of the other subjects right into it. So I asked him, I said, would you like to maybe put together a short video to kind of explain why what we're doing is so important and why you really can learn through Minecraft? So he took his alter ego, who is called Blue Block 6, to tell us a little bit, along with his mom, what we're doing or why we're doing it. Bring it on, boy.
Please get off Minecraft. It is rotting your brain, my son.
Did you know that Minecraft can actually teach you quite a lot of useful skills?
That is ridiculous. Minecraft is just a video game.
Do you believe that Minecraft may be teaching the first steps on how to code? Redstone teaches basic logic, which can help with coding in the future. Minecraft can also help with social skills. If you play on a server with other people, you can learn how to cooperate, solve problems together, and teamwork.
Okay, you have my attention.
Minecraft can also teach math skills.
How?
Glad you asked. When making a big building, you may need to do math to make sure it is the right shape, such as if it's a circle, and often you may need to use math to figure out how many resources you will need. You also use geometry when constructing buildings with various shapes.
Wow, I had no idea Minecraft taught so much.
And there's even more. Minecraft can teach visual spatial skills by trying to replicate something from an image in Minecraft, or building a town and figuring out where to put houses. In survival mode, you need to manage your resources and work with what you have. If you need more, you need to work for it. You don't just have it. Math also comes into play again when figuring out how many resources you need for your goal.
That's crazy. If that's true, people should use Minecraft in school.
Actually, now that you mention it, Minecraft has their own education edition, and before that, people have made their own educational programs with Minecraft Java Edition. Education Edition even has elements from the periodic table, and you can mix them together to make substances.
That's awesome.
And using third-party modding programs, you can modify Minecraft by coding with Java.
I can't believe Minecraft teaches so much.
Now tell your son to go back on. He's learning more than you think.
He's learning more than you think. I love that.
Thank you, Blue Block 6. And I know that my team is very much looking forward to building the first real world problem for you to solve and for us to build to share with other students once you get all the kinks out. So we appreciate your partnership with us.
Yeah.
Now, Shanae, you had said, this is my segue in that
Yes.
for this show, you asked me what I learned this week. So I got this mug, and it is a Lego base, right, onto which you would build.
Wow.
And I successfully have like a body coming out of my wall here. Those are a couple of legs here. And what I learned is how difficult it is to build Legos in a vertical fashion on a coffee mug. So all you're getting are some legs, but in it is a very nice Gavalia medium roast. Shanae, what's in your mug? And audience, tell us what is in your mug.
So I had to break out one of my mini Starbucks mugs from way back when you could travel the world. So this is my cup from my visit to Germany. I will be adding South Africa. It is pinned on my map right now as a place to go to. My best friend went, when COVID's over. But in my mug, I am from the South, so it is sweet tea.
Nice, nice. Is that sweet tea with sugar in it?
Yeah, there's no other way to drink sweet tea. Y'all Northerners we have just iced tea. No, down here it's sweet. That's the only way it comes.
I know you have sweet tea, and then they're like sweet tea unsweetened. It doesn't make any sense. Shelly, what is in your mug?
What is in my mug? Well, I'm not really a mugger. I don't drink coffee. But lately, my mug looks like this. So on a positive note, my son is learning to share, but he's also insisting that you drink out of his cup. So I get this every night. Shoved in my face that I must drink. Thank God we drink the same thing, Gatorade Zero.
All righty.
Good.
Cheers.
One day you put a little vodka in it and send it back.
No.
All right. Wait, what is in your mug?
So I have this mug which has plants all over it. I bought it with my supervisor. It was so weird. She bought me a mug and I bought her a mug, only to end up buying the same mug for each other. So in my mug, I actually have water because
you fossil people.
It's after midnight here, so I can't exactly take something. And also, there's an alcohol restriction in South Africa, so no alcohol is being sold until this level is over. So yeah, so I'll stick with water and coffee in the morning.
Sounds good.
Good. Aubrey, what is in your mug?
So it's been an evolution to get to this. So this is a mason jar with a silicone jar jacket, and I'm drinking hot water. And it's been an evolution to get to this. But I was always somebody who I never liked drinking water. And I found that hot water with just a little bit of sugar, that I could actually drink it and stay hydrated, and then over time stop drinking the sugar. But I've been using it for about 6 years, just drinking the hot water. So I'm much more hydrated.
Right. And I learned from a candidate who was interviewing with us that if you sip water, you will become hydrated. If you gulp water, you won't. So yeah, it's good to know you have to sip. So we've got lots of people putting in the chat all of the things that they're drinking. And I see, Julia, you're saying that it's a little chilly in Florida, so you're having a tea there. But I have to tell you, I'm in Florida, but it is sunny and warm. No, it is sunny and warm because I refuse to open that door. I'm just looking out the glass door at sunny and warm, okay?
For sure. I always got to tell people that it's cold. So, I'm in Florida and they don't ever believe that.
Right.
But I do have a question for the group. Really thinking about all the fields that each of you are in and really the need in the future of STEM. But what is really the importance of, having students, girls, just going into, exploring this field? Why is it important? Why is it something that we need to continue to address? And I'll start with you, Aubrey. What are your thoughts?
Well, in my particular case, being in socially assisted robotics, I think that a lot of the time, young women bring a lot more empathy and a little bit more caregiving and nurturing to it. And so when you're thinking about how you can use robots as an intervention, as a tool, you have a very different lens. It's not just like, how are we going to program this, or the robot's going to lift this or do that. It's like, what is the relationship, and how does our friendship evolve? And I find that I've had some amazing experiences working with different interns over the years. And something that Shelley said earlier that I really loved was how there's not just one answer. So, for example, Movia Robotics, the company I work with, they have a whole 5 or so different robots that they work with, because there's no one answer for a child. If you're in a classroom, if you've got a nonverbal child, if you've got a higher function, a very advanced child. So I think some of that creativity and social and emotional sides of things, that's why we really want to bring more women into the space.
Oh, love it. What about you, Shelley? What is the impact really that you're seeing that, we really need to have when it comes to STEM?
So for me, it's really about building that confidence in not just the women, but also our boys. Again, creating that atmosphere that I can do attitude, and not like, no, I'm not good at this. I've never been good at math, or I've never been able to do this before. Because really nowadays, most people's work is not in isolation. So you don't ever have to do things alone. So really focusing on that growth mindset piece, which we've talked about before, is the different mindsets of STEM. And one of the growth mindset is so important, building that confidence and that teamwork. And then slowly they can kind of, shift off on their own and be able to accomplish tasks on their own. But really that working together and that commitment to teamwork and just building that overall confidence is super important to the work that I'm doing.
I 100% agree. And my question is a little bit different because you talked about representation, and that's something that I've really been focused on as the director of equity, as one of our 7 lenses. But why is it so important to have diverse representation in the field? What does that speak to for our younger generation?
So it speaks a lot to identifying with someone. It speaks a lot to relating, because with South Africa is we call ourselves the rainbow nation, because there are a lot of people from different ethnic backgrounds, and it helps when women. I'm from a rural community, so there's a lot of patriarchy. So in order to overcome a lot of that, I've had to find ways to actually be able to encourage young girls and say, hey, science is just not only for the guys. You can get into science, and your voice will be heard. You'll be brilliant. Girls are just magic. We have this amazing capability to teach, to do a whole lot of things, but I think we have been sort of sidelined for a very long time without being heard, not necessarily just in science, but in all fields, actually, without our opinions being taken for granted. And I believe that particularly in South Africa, you really do need that representation, particularly when you have a country that is majority Black and you don't have a lot of representation with from I mean you can't be a majority Black country and most of like the well-known posts are just occupied by people of different races, and you don't have anyone that you can identify with and say, oh, I'd like to be like her, I'd like to be like him, so we still have a long way to go, but we're getting there. And I really do believe that because we as females we're able to work together and overcome a whole lot of things, and forming, like, having a united front, particularly in STEM, is very important when you get into a field where you're actually being bullied, and making things much more easier for the people that are coming. There's a lot of work that we're doing for the future generation, so it's much easier for them to get into this field and get the recognition that they deserve without being clouded by the boys club, the gentleman's club, because that's how science is sort of like viewed most of the time. So we need to make our own girls club where we like, listen guys, it's not it.
Pave the way. Pave the way.
It's interesting to me that in the United States, it's taken a couple of 100 years till we finally have at the top of our government, or second to top of our government, that we will be installing a vice president who is female, as well as Black and Indian. And it's taken us 200 years to break that ceiling, but
Yes,
we're just going to keep going. We're just going to keep going.
for sure. For sure.
So, Shelley, I want to play off something you said when you were I was talking with a friend recently, and I said, when you think about kids finding their way socially in the world, I always say that sixth grade is a very hard year because you're entering middle school. It's a time you are starting to figure out who you are and what you're all about. And I always say sixth grade is the second worst year in a kid's life, followed only by seventh grade.
And then
I was a middle school teacher, and I found that sixth grade is scary. Seventh grade, you're just trying to like fit in or figure out who you are, make friends. By eighth grade, you're kind of like, I got this. But sixth and seventh are hard grades. And you brought up a wonderful point about STEM careers, that it's not about the stuff, and it's not always about science as the way we think of science or technology.
Right.
It is about thinking. It's about challenging ideas. It's about listening to one another. It's about collaborating and building together. So talk more about what you're doing, the structures you guys have in place, so that students are working together and building that confidence that is so important.
So at our school, we do have expectations for the teachers that kids are working in, and as part of our LATIC model, working in home groups. They are working together either individually in pairs or small groups, so that they have different opportunities to think as an individual, bring ideas back together to the team and share, and then go back to working either as a small group or individually. We also have structures in place where, because again, we were remodeled, I was able to purchase furniture that was designed purposely for collaboration. So everything's on wheels. It allows tables to be put together to create larger groups, or break them down to create smaller groups. We also have things in place where we talk about we have 3 different core actions that we work on with teachers, and specifically core action 3 is about what are the students doing? And so, working with our teachers in order to get the students to do things as a teacher, you have to be deliberately planning and creating those opportunities for kids. They don't just magically happen in the classroom. So really getting teachers to strategically plan and collaborate together to make those lessons come alive in the classroom where kids have opportunities to talk. When we walk in a classroom and we hear noise, there's a difference between good noise and chaos. And most of the times that we're walking in the classrooms, we hear that excitement among the kids where they're talking, they're problem solving, and they're trying to beat out another group or come up with the most creative answer, or they can't wait to share their group's answer that they came to consensus with. So all those different things that we do in our jobs, we want to provide the kids with those opportunities so that as they move from that scary 6th grade to 7th grade to 8th grade, they become more confident individuals. And really it's that self-advocacy piece, that they have that confidence to advocate for themselves and know how to attack a problem, whether it be a school problem or a personal problem or, a job-related problem as they get older and into high school.
And as you're thinking about preparing students to really follow any career, but being sure that you're opening their minds to STEM, what is the greatest advice that you would like to give to your students here on international TV?
I think the greatest advice I can give is to really listen to people, be open to different ideas, because as much as in your head you see it this way, it's really amazing how people see things differently. And so that's been definitely eye-opening for myself, because I'm not necessarily my way or the highway, but like I see it and I'm that concrete sequential person. So being in this environment now has really opened up my mind to all the really, like Aubrey had mentioned that, there is not one way to solve a problem. So all being really open to all those different approaches, especially in the role of a principal, that yes, this has to get done, but does it have to get done this way? So how are there different ways to approach things?
All right.
Great. I love that.
And it's, I cannot believe my time is up. I want to allow our 2 other guests to answer a similar question. And I knew when I looked at the guest lineup, I'm like, I need a 3-hour show. Like, this is not going to work. So I may be calling upon all of you to come back at another time. But let's ask Aviwe, if you were talking to students today who are considering careers, what would be the one piece of advice that you would want to give them for pursuing a STEM career like yours?
I would say follow your passion. Because the one thing that a lot of people are not doing is following their passion. They just choose a career because it's either popular or it's something that's going to make them money now, like quickly. And for any field, not even just STEM, but if you're passionate about what you're doing and the work that you're doing, it shows. You become good at it, and you get the recognition from different people. I mean, you wouldn't have found me if I was not passionate about the work that I'm doing, and to make sure that people actually know that there is such a thing as paleobotany in South Africa. So the one key thing is follow your passion and just don't give up, because it's when you do follow your passion, a lot of opportunities start coming in. And there's this whole concept that there's no money in STEM, there's no money in academia, but are you really going there to get the money, let's say to be wealthy? Why? You need to think about why you are in the profession that you're in. Why are you taking that profession, instead of just I'll be able to get money right now. And I understand that a lot of people do not have that opportunity to actually do that, because they have families to support and they need to do things quickly. But if you can just follow your passion and what you're good at, you will shine. You'll be the star in the corner and be bright. So that's my advice.
I love
Wonderful advice. And Aubrey and Misty, What advice do you
My advice and what I tell every student I work with, every intern, is you can make a difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like your designs, your ideas. My first robot was literally cut out of cardboard where I had just taped electronics together.
Oh, wow.
And all of those, and that idea went on to actually be sold in 7 countries and interact with thousands of kids, right?
Wow.
And so when somebody's interested, you can have an impact. You can make a difference. The children I've worked with, are verbalizing, have increased confidence, skill acquisition. And that's the motivator. That's why you want to get into this, why you want to do this, because you can make a difference.
Awesome. Awesome. And Shanae, what words of advice would you like to give to young people?
I feel like it's a combination of all of those things. Like, be confident, follow your passion, and know that you can make a difference. Because, we're all going to be dust and bones, and the next generation is going to be taken over. So we want to make sure that we've equipped them so that they can do all those things. The dust and bones.
Well, think about 250 million years from now, someone like Aviwe is going to be
finding our dust and bones.
Well, I cannot say enough about this group. My guests always make this show amazing. Aubrey, thank you. I know that you kind of threw your neck out, and so you have been moving, not so much like the robot today, but I really appreciate that you hung in there for the show. And Aviwe, I know that you are up. It is now 1:00 in the morning, so we're going to let you go to bed now. And Shelly, I love you. I love working with you. And I know that you have an 18-month old who's waiting for you to come home with your bottle. And thank you so much. And Shanae, of course, always, I appreciate you being my partner in crime as we, do a lot of things with equity in our company and looking at equity in the fields of STEM as well. So to the live audience, you rock. I love the comments, the questions, everything. I love that you're coming back week after week to engage with us. I really appreciate that. And as always, I love to end the show with the kids of IDE who always have a little something good to say. And next week, we'll be discussing a related topic, fueled by executive function. So I hope you will come back to see the amazing guests we put together for that show. And now, the kids of IDE, and I hope that you guys have an awesome week. Thanks for watching.
Hey, I embody STEM by wanting to be a Disney Imagineer when I grow up. I was first inspired by this guy and one of the other Disney legends, Marty Sklar. When he signed this book for me, it really got me thinking about how I'm going to become an Imagineer, which inspired me to write my very own Path to Imagineering Victory Journal. And every time I finish writing in it, I always write to myself, never stop dreaming, because if you stop dreaming, then there's no imagination left in the world.
When I grow up, I'm going to be a doctor, just like my Dr. Siegel. First I build at the bottom and that's 4 pieces. And then I build at the top and then I build it down. Bumblebee and he is fire. Or this, I call my mommy or daddy or anybody, and then they'll help me, and then I keep doing it.
I was there for the 40th anniversary. I'll also be there for the 50th. And well, for the 60th, you'll see me there as an Imagineer. You hear that, Disney?
Thanks for watching Learning Unwrapped. Tune in next week to talk about Fueled by Executive Function.